How's it going, guys and girls? Hope you guys have had a great week and had a great E3. So I'm back again today with another video. This again is going to be about giving my opinion, weighing in on what we learned at E3 this year. And today we're going to talk all about the exclusives. So the question today is, who had the best exclusives at E3 this year? Well, let's start off by talking about some of the exclusives that were announced. So we're going to start, of course, with Microsoft. Now, for me, actually, I thought Microsoft again this year were the weakest in terms of talking about exclusives and what exclusives they had. Now, obviously, Phil Spencer came out, started off with the Xbox One X, and then obviously said it's all about the games. We've got 42 games, this year that we're going to show to you. And there were a lot of games. The conference was packed to the hilt with games. But for me, a lot of them were either third party, they were timed exclusive. So things like launch exclusive on the Xbox One X. And, quite a few of them were sort of indie titles as well. I think they showed like Idea Xbox, and I counted there were like 32 games packed in like a 30-second trailer. But for me, it's still lacking in big sort of first party exclusives. The exclusives obviously that they did mention, they talked obviously about Sea of Thieves, Crackdown 3, Forza Motorsport, which I'll admit looked gorgeous. It looked beautiful on the Xbox One X in 4K. It did look impressive. And of course, State of Decay 2 as well. And then they mentioned Super Lucky's Tale, which I think is like Microsoft's answer to the Crash Bandicoot remake on the PlayStation 4, because obviously PlayStation's had a lot of very good platforming games with Ratchet and Clank and Crash Bandicoot and Banjo-Kazooie. So I think that's their answer to it. But out of all those sort of exclusives, the only two that really have any interest for me are Crackdown 3, of which we didn't even really get to see proper gameplay trailer. We saw a gameplay trailer, but we didn't see like a walkthrough or actual gameplay. It was very, very scripted scenes. And you know what? That worries me. That actually worries me that we still have not seen like a 5 or 10 minute playthrough of the game. I don't even think it was a playable game at E3. I didn't see any of it on the show floor or any sort of gameplay segments on it. So that's a little concerning in terms of how ready that game is, and obviously in what quality it's in as well. And then the only other one is Sea of Thieves. The gameplay we saw was fun. The narrator that was talking in the background and showing us obviously that you can go into caves and you can get treasure and the fights and you can jump out of cannons and all these really awesome, really, really cool things. The narrator was really funny and I liked the style of it. I thought it was great. But again, I'm still not sure that's a big enough title for me. Like, it looks like a fun online world, and fine, online games are fun for me to play, but I'm all about the story, I'm all about the characters. I'm still disappointed that they cancelled Scalebound, and there just weren't enough exclusives for me at E3 this year again, and it's another problem again, and I hope that they're gonna have things in the works so that next E3 they'll obviously be able to announce them all. Now, the decision between first and second place is very, very close here, because both Nintendo and Sony had some very good exclusives, but I would say that probably in second place for me is Nintendo. I'd probably say Nintendo. Now, they had some shock announcements, some exciting announcements, and you know what? This year, Nintendo's had a very, very good year. The release of the Switch has been very, very successful. A lot of hardware has sold. They've already had some very good game releases this year. I mean, Zelda is potential game of the year. The new ARMS is just released, which I played with Fish and Dante. Really, really enjoyed it. Splatoon 2 is coming out in July, and then there's lots of other games that they showed at their E3 showcase at their Nintendo Direct. So let's talk about a couple of them. Obviously they showed more on Mario Odyssey. Now, last year when I saw it, I'm like, what is this game? It looks weird. The art styles are so varied and different, and I really didn't know how to sort of take it. But after we saw some gameplay and we actually saw like some of the gameplay innovations that have been introduced into this game, it looks really fun, and I love the whole hats. I love the whole being able to use it to possess people. I think it's great. I think the different art styles are really interesting, and it looks like a really, really good Mario game. And it looks like, you know, Nintendo are trying to sort of reinvent a lot of their franchises and breathe a little bit of life into them and do something a bit new, a bit different, and I will say a little bit risky. I mean, look at Zelda as an open world game. Definitely a Zelda game, but it did so many new things and was incredibly successful. I think Mario Odyssey is going to be the same thing for Nintendo. Mario and Rabbids Kingdom Battle, of course, it's Ubisoft produced, but it is an exclusive on the Switch. That for me is probably going to be a potential buy. It looks really, really good. ARMS, of course, which has just come out. And Splatoon 2, of course, which comes out in July. And then they mentioned like a new Kirby game, which is cooperative play, and you can sort of coordinate your different powers, and it looked really fun. Of course, a new Yoshi game as well, which they announced. Both of those will probably come out in 2018. But the big sort of shocker, and fans of Nintendo have been waiting for this for a long time, and then to suddenly not announce not only one new Metroid game, but two, is huge. Is huge in Nintendo. So like they announced obviously Metroid Prime 4. All we saw was a screen, like a title screen and the number 4. But you know what? It's got people hyped already. And then of course we have Metroid Samus Returns on the 3DS, and we got to see some gameplay of that, and it looks fabulous. It looks like a great sort of remastered version there. So I thought Nintendo had some really good exclusives, and they have a lot of good games coming out this year, spread throughout the year, and also, you know, a lot of titles coming out in 2018 as well, and obviously possibly 2019 with Metroid Prime 4, which probably is going to be like a 2019-2020 release, I'm thinking. But Nintendo are very in a good, strong position. But for me, the company that still have the best exclusives for me are still Sony. They're still Sony. Now, I'm not a Sony fangirl, you know. I own an Xbox One. I own a PS4. I've been saving up since January, and in July when Splatoon comes out, I am going to get a Nintendo Switch because I like to play games across all the platforms so I can review them. So I will say, hand on heart, I want all three to do well. I want all three companies to have good exclusives, because that is better for us. You know, if all these companies are coming out with these great games and great exclusives, then that inspires, you know, each other to produce, you know, really high level, high quality games. So I want Microsoft to have good exclusives. I want Nintendo to have good exclusives, but still for me, the best company in terms of exclusives, it's still Sony. It's still Sony. I mean, if we list off all the exclusives that were shown at E3, they're all incredible. For me, they're all games that I have to buy. You know, there are games that you want to buy because you're like, oh, it looks interesting. I might want to check that out. I'll pick it up when it's a bit cheaper. And then there are games that I have to buy. There are games that I want to play so badly. I want them now, like those kinds of games. So for me, those are all the games that Sony announced in their conference. God of War, cannot wait to play that. Can't wait to find out where Kratos' story is going to go. Love the whole dynamic of him and his son. I'm super excited to explore a sort of Norse mythology. The game looks beautiful. It looks great. Very excited for that. And you know, we saw just like a short gameplay footage trailer, not as long as last year, but you know, it was enough for me to keep me hungry for that game. Days Gone, I preferred this year's trailer over last year's. I thought it was a more interesting take on the game. It definitely gave me more vibes of The Last of Us meets sort of Walking Dead. I love the whole dynamic of you know, the world being dangerous, and it not only being a danger from sort of like the zombies or whatever they're calling them, the freakers, I think they call them, but also, you know, the danger from humans in that world and sort of trying to survive. I love the whole sort of stealth elements to it. I love being able to use the freakers as like as a weapon, effectively. I thought it was great. Days Gone looks really, really interesting. Spider-Man for me was a massive highlight of E3 this year. The gameplay footage was fantastic. I have been waiting years for a very, very good Spider-Man game, and a great open world Spider-Man game as well. The last really good open world Spider-Man game I played was probably like Spider-Man 2 on the PlayStation 2. That was sort of the first Spider-Man game I ever played, and I freaking loved it. Not only because it was voice acted by Bruce Campbell, who is just a legend, but it was a good game. And then probably after that, Shattered Dimensions was really, really fun for me and had some great boss fights, and was really interesting and really different. So I'm super hyped about a new Spider-Man game. I love the combat. I love the elements of stealth. I love the whole Batman-esque feel to parts of it. I even like the quick time events and the action or orientated sort of scripted action pieces in it as well. And that game just looks great. We saw a new trailer for Detroit Become Human. That game looks really interesting, but I think we know enough about the game now to know what we're expecting. So I would have liked to have had a confirmed release date, to be fair, for Detroit Become Human. And then, of course, we have Uncharted The Lost Legacy as well, which is coming out in August. And I love the fact that it's focused on Chloe Frazer. I love her character. I love Claudia Black, who voice acts her. I think she's brilliant, and so I'm very much looking forward to playing it. I love, we got to see little snippets, so it's like familiar things. So it's got the Jeep in it, like from Uncharted 4. It's gonna have all these great gameplay elements that were in Uncharted 4, but it's going to be slightly different. You know, it's going to be interesting to play as a different protagonist in Uncharted. We're so used to playing as Nathan Drake that it's going to be really interesting not to play as him. And I'm very much looking forward to that game when it comes out in August. So all those games for me, they are all must-buy games. I have to buy those games. I have to play them. You know, I have a feeling I need to play those games. So yeah, Sony had the best exclusives. And then we're not even talking about things that they didn't announce that they showed last year. So The Last of Us 2, for example, the Final Fantasy 7 remake. They obviously talked about Shadow of Colossus remake as well. So there's lots of really good exclusives coming out on the PlayStation 4. So for me, I still think, you know, if you're thinking about buying a console and you're trying to, you haven't jumped on this generation, Sony's still got the best exclusives, you know, compared to Microsoft and Nintendo. So, you know, that's who I thought had the best exclusives. Now, all those exclusives I've mentioned, all those games I want to play, I want to pick up at some point. But of course, money, I'm going to have to prioritize on the games that I want to play, but that's what I generally thought about who had the best exclusives at E3 this year. Obviously, you might completely disagree with me, and that's absolutely fine. Let me know in the comment section below who you thought had the best exclusives this year at E3, and what exclusive games are must-buys for you, and which ones are ones that you're going to wait on in terms of buying them. Share in the comment section below. Hope you guys are having a great week. Take care, and as always, happy gaming.